Ever scroll through your Instagram feed and realize you can't remember where that painting or drawing ended up?
Mm-hmm.
It's tax season. So that means it's time to scramble to figure out cost versus profit. Are you having trouble keeping track of how many limited prints or original works are still available?
You know this.
Have you ever wanted to get your business insights like what market you have the most success in?
Mm-hmm.
I sure do. Let's be honest, we all wish we could afford an assistant to manage the business aspect of our art career so we can focus on the thing we do best, our artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the people of Artwork Archive have produced a platform that allows all these things and so much more.
Yeah. So real quick, me and MJ, we actually tried using this website, and it was actually pretty awesome. I mean, I know this is an ad read, but like,
Yeah.
Like the tax thing was super cool. Like the tracking your art was like one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, like I don't know. Have you ever had that where you're like, where the fuck is that painting at?
Oh yeah, all the time.
And then this thing just keeps track of it. But one of the big things was like the invoicing that they can do. Like it's like a very professional invoice.
Oh, is it?
You can do like the tax and all that in it really easily. So it was like one of those things where it was like, and it keeps track of all that stuff. So
yeah, what I thought was cool, because I looked in the website the other day too, the insights thing, this thing that they have insights where you actually add in like where you're showing your work and how much you're selling it for. Right. And it'll kind of like predict based off of that, like where the trends are going.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty neat. Like I've never
sure.
seen anybody do that before.
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me of like QuickBooks or whatever, but just like hyper focused on like an art version of that.
Right, exactly. So yeah, once you've uploaded your artwork, not only do you have a professional catalog of your work, but it saves you time creating tear sheets, consignment reports, and invoices, like we just said. Yeah. So yeah, go sign up. So the first month is free, no credit card info needed, which I actually really love when companies don't make you sign your credit card info just to do a
they're
trial.
Trying to like sneaky.
Yeah.
Like, now that month's over, we got you.
Exactly. Yeah.
We got you for at least 1 month, and hopefully you're lazy for 3.
Yeah, exactly. When you sign up through our link at artworkarchive.com/waiting, you get 20% off your first year if you decide to subscribe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's artworkarchive.com/waiting. Go do that shit. Support the podcast. Love you guys. And we'll marry you one day.
I go like, so I got this idea. Here's the idea. And it's not so much to get their approval or their disapproval, which is what some people think it would be. It's more to hear myself have to explain it to somebody.
Right.
If while I'm explaining it, I'm going, God, I feel so stupid right now. I'm like, I'm not committed to this idea. Like I feel like this is dumb, right?
I had a painting once where I was explaining to someone at the art show, and I said, speak their truth. And I was like, I hate myself. I don't even like this painting anymore.
All right.
So how do you do this? You go like,
Sergio
okay.
But he has this.
Right.
He has this.
I'm sure you got a pitch. Right? I'm sure you got to, right?
Okay. We call it the. I call it the like Sergio sets it up where there's a empty silence for a bit, and you're like, is he gonna do it? And then he comes in right when you don't expect it. It's the least perfect timing.
Gotcha. Welcome everybody to Waiting to Dry. Starting this awkward as always. This is the least informative art podcast around, so put your notebooks away, everybody. You won't need them. My name is Sergio Lopez.
I'm Josh Lawyer.
And we have Carl Dobsky on the podcast today.
I'm glad to be with you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you asked, actually. I was surprised when I got a message from Joshua the lawyer. Who is Mr. the lawyer? I've never heard of this person.
I know. I get a lot of, are you a lawyer in real life?
It was one of those things where I was like, I don't know if I would need to, who is it? I don't know. Is this, is it fake? Do I reply to this? I don't know what to do.
Well, the problem is I get that. I've gotten that joke my entire life. they're like, oh, because my last name is Lawyer, so it's like,
Oh,
oh,
wait, seriously? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, so people are like, oh, you're gonna be a lawyer when you grow up, or oh, are you a lawyer? So I thought it'd be funny just to like make the joke first,
Oh,
but then it doesn't work.
No, because I thought that it was just a weird like internet handle or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I wasn't really
Yeah, like
sure.
main loop or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, we might have to have you pull just slightly close, or just pull the mic closer. To
There
you.
you go,
Yeah, perfect.
Mhm.
And we might want to take your lows down. You got a deep ass voice, like
Sorry, I've been talking for.
But if you want to turn it down.
is this one?
Yeah.
All right.
I've been talking a
Okay.
lot while I've been up here, and so like I can feel like my voice is starting to get a
Yeah.
little haggard from talking
Yeah.
over everybody all day long. So.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
crack the whip a lot? Is that what's happening?
No, it's just more like it gets loud in here when the heater kicks on, and I'm trying to talk over everything, and so I have to speak loudly all day long, and I've been doing it for like 2 days. So yeah, it's just more one of those things. you know.
So for the listeners, you're doing is it 5 days?
Yeah, it's a 5-day portrait workshop up here at BACAA, the Bay Area Academy Atelier Figure Art.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I totally nailed it, right? I'm really terrible with all that stuff.
Yeah.
But BACAA, it's up here in San Francisco, and they bring in people from all over. I'm sure you guys have been aware of it for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great opportunity to come up again, do some teaching, see some people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you lived. I mean, we talked about it a bit before the show, but you lived in the Bay Area for a good chunk of time, right?
I did. I lived here for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years.
Mhm.
I moved here from New York City after I went to school in New York City,
Nice.
and I moved out here and started working with the guys at Massive Black and that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, just having lived here over time, that just evolved into other things. And,
Right.
I still really love San Francisco. Love this place. I really,
Yeah.
really do. Even with all of the weirdness that's developed over time, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the place, and I actually miss it a lot. Like, it's
Mm.
beautiful up here. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. But now you're in Southern California.
I live in Los Angeles now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm down there.
And that's not an ugly place itself.
It's not an ugly place.
No.
Parts of it are.
Depends on where you
parts
go,
of it are
yeah.
wonderful, and parts of it are like, oh my god, it's
Yeah.
Yeah, the darkest
urban,
of the dark.
just an urban sprawl. Like, it's,
Yeah.
but I live in a pretty good spot. I'm pretty happy with that. And
Nice.
My
Okay.
studio is close by, so I don't have to do a lot of the studio commute or the commuting on the freeways. So
good.
I don't have to do too much of that. So it's all right.
That's cool.
Yeah, sometimes I teach it. I teach some figure drawing stuff at the Warehouse Workshops, which is kind of over in Midtown off Crenshaw. So that that's not too far away. So I don't have to commute too far for that.
Right.
Sometimes I do some teaching down at Laguna College of Art and Design,
Oh, okay. Mhm.
which great people down there. But that commute is fucking sucks.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
2.5 hours, 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
One way. Oh,
You could
God.
try to helicopter it.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
God, that's brutal.
Yeah, super brutal. Like but other than that, it's good.
Yeah.
Little too warm, but what are you gonna do?
So,
Yeah.
so did you was teaching a big part of like your art career since the get-go?
No, it was I went to school. Well, at first I didn't go to school. I got out of high school and didn't go to school.
Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and so I figured it was better to do nothing
Right,
and
yeah.
hang out until I figured it out. So I
Good move.
I just did all kinds of crazy stuff. I went hitchhiking for like 2 years.
That's awesome.
Like all kinds of just crazy stuff, trying to figure out what to do. And I actually thought I was going to go to school for psychology or something like that.
Huh.
Yeah, I always drew and everything, but I never was like, I'm going to be a career as an artist, and that's how I'm
Right.
going to make it in the world. And it wasn't until, soul searching about it for a long time that I finally was like, I don't want to be I don't want to listen to people's problems all day long.
Right.
For sure.
I can't be a psychologist, you know.
Yeah.
Or a psychiatrist or whatever. It's like I gotta do something else. And and
Yeah.
I was like, drawing
Amateur.
drawing had always been a part of my life. So, you know what I mean. I just finally was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go do that. And I mostly just took classes at like a community college and stuff like that for a while, mostly because I just didn't really know what direction to go in. So my entry into the whole thing is more like I just liked drawing, and I was into painting, and I was just more into the kind of fine art thing, really, you know, of whatever sort, you know. And when it came time to be serious and go to school, that's when you kind of have to pick. And you know, looking around at all the different fine art departments, I was like, oh man, this is not at all the kind of stuff I want to have to do. And so I wound up going to school for illustration.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I went into, I think a lot of people do that. I wind up going in an illustration department because you know you're going to get, you know, drawing skills and all of that. And
For sure.
you're like, they're going to make me draw Ben and Jerry's ice cream ads, but which sucks, but I mean, I guess whatever, you know?
Yeah.
For sure.
So, but I did that. And then after by the end of that, I realized I didn't necessarily want to be an illustrator, really, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. And so I decided that I would continue with education. And that's when I went to New York. I went to go to New York Academy of Art to get my master's degree, because I was thinking, well, if I have to, I could, you know, wind up teaching or whatever I wanted to. But even then, it wasn't even when I moved to San Francisco and first started up with the guys at Massive Black. That wasn't even like, I'm going to be a teacher, and it didn't even work out that way. That would just sort of naturally evolved out of the whole thing. Yeah.
Was there any growing pains through that process of kind of figuring out how to be a teacher of art or painting?
No, surprisingly, there wasn't. That was the weird part, you know. Like that's why I guess I kept doing it, because there weren't any growing pains really. You know how it is living in San Francisco. Your apartments are small, and I was tired of tired of painting, because I was still painting I was showing at John Pence Gallery, and I was painting stuff, and I was just tired of painting in my apartment. You know, like I using my little living room as my studio. I just wanted something a little bigger that I could paint in, and so the whole thing started because I was like, I need to figure out a way to finance a bigger studio, right? And so I didn't really know what to do, and I was just, you know, talking to the guys at work, and I'm like, you know what, I think I'm going to just do this, and I'm just going to put up some ads on Craigslist or something, and like see what I can swing, and then I'll just take the student fees and use it to finance a bigger studio. And when I'm not teaching, I'll just have a bigger studio. And somehow word of that went around, and then you know, one of them was like, oh, well, you know what, we've been thinking about doing a school and blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's interesting. And they're like, well, you should like head up doing the curriculum. And I was like, no, I don't really think I should. And because he was like, well, we're going to do this, and there's going to be concept art involved. And I essentially said, look, I don't want anybody to tell me what I have to do. Like, I don't want to be told what I can and can't teach. Like, I'm not doing this because I want to, like, my vision wasn't, I'm going to create this whole thing. I literally just wanted a studio space. And, and so when they were like, well, you could do blah blah blah, okay, fine, you can make whatever curriculum you want. I was like, and you're gonna make sure I get a studio space. Like, there's a space in that, you know, area that's like my spot that and that was the deal. You know, and that's how it started. And then so did I know how it was going to turn out? I had no idea, like no idea at all. I just was like, well, I'm going to try to make the best curriculum that I can think of that would apply, and not only just to apply to what I wanted to teach, but I did try to go like, well, these guys also want to teach illustration and concept art, and like I was so how could I make these things sort of fit together. So when you're
Mhm.
talking to the students, it doesn't seem like just a bunch of random information. It like
You're not trying to Miyagi them, like
exactly
wax
no
on, wax off, and like
right.
you block these punches.
And then you squish like grape.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I know I tried to avoid the squish like grape. So that took a bit of work to figure out how to make it obvious for them to relate. Like, how do you relate traditional cast drawing to drawing monsters?
Right.
You know?
Right,
So
for
like
sure.
that took quite a bit of thought, but
Mhm.
you know, when everybody showed up and it was time to go, it was crazy. Like I just did it. It's kind of weird for me to say that because I normally am really,
Self-critical or something.
yeah. And this is one of those things in my life I can actually say like, no, it went rather smoothly
That's
on that
interesting,
one.
right?
Yeah. It's like, and that's kind of why I kept doing it. Cause it's just pleasurable for me to do it. Like
That's cool.
I mean, you know, it's ups and downs like everything, but
Right.
it wasn't, you know, I just realized I could explain this thing.
Mhm.
So
So how did you bridge that gap? Because I don't know, a lot of people are actually familiar with like even what Massive Black is. It's a concept art, basically like, what would you call it? Like a design firm almost, but for concept art.
yeah, it was an outsourcing company that
Yeah.
basically took on whatever kind of jobs there were, mostly for video games and, you know, some movies and even like advertising.
Yeah.
stuff.
And so your school that you're kind of talking about is like the Safe House Atelier, right? It's
Yeah,
kinda
well, it wasn't called that then,
Right.
but that's what the name became.
yeah, I think it was like conceptart.org Atelier at
It
first.
went through like a couple names actually. So
Yeah.
Anything cool like Dragon Killer or
no,
something?
no. I have to credit. I think it was Christian McNevin that came up with the name. It could have been Cody, or it could have been a combination. I'm not really sure,
Uh-huh.
but it came up where they were like, "Well, we hate this like conceptart.org name. It's so
Yeah.
stupid, right?"
Right. Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, I know. That's just the name that it was under because nobody came up with a name.
Right,
And then
yeah.
they were like, well, what?
.gov?
But there was the whole what did they call it back in games when there was like the next gen games,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Whatever. There's
I
the
don't
whole
remember, but yeah.
the whole moment where there was like, oh, everything is next gen.
Okay.
And so they called it like the Next Gen Atelier. So it's like the Next Gen Atelier. It's like, so they called it that for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. Great name.
yeah.
And then, of course, you
hilarious.
can't live with that name for very long once
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Once the bullies in school show up.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Or once cancel culture starts, you can't really do stuff
Yeah,
like that
exactly.
anymore. So
Yeah.
so
Oh,
then
that's
it turned into the Safe House
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
after that. So the name just sort of evolved, even though it and the school evolved too, but it basically was always kind of the same sort of a thing.
hmm
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like what you were saying. Like people came there to learn both how to do concept art and how to like paint traditionally.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I know a lot of people just because we're all friends with a lot of the alumni there. So yeah, I am kind of curious how that came about. Like actually getting you there first of all, and then like how you were saying like how that bridging the gap between concept art and like cast drawing, for example.
Well, that's actually more straightforward than it would seem, really. In terms of like, I guess designing a character or a creature or something, like the linear aspect of it, it's not similar at all. But once you start talking about like how to render out the volumes of something or how to, give something a three-dimensional quality, then all of a sudden it completely applies because the way that I think of cast drawing or engage with it is not by just sort of optically looking at values and comparing them, copying them. It's not like going, well, that one's lighter compared to that one, the darker. I don't really do it that way so much. It's more a matter of like trying to understand what the volume is like as a sculpture and trying to conceive of that and knowing that the rate of change in the value should equal the rate of curvature of the form. So it becomes like a really conceptual kind of way of describing it.
Right. Yeah.
To where you're almost trying to imagine what it's like. And because you're trying to imagine what it's like, it directly relates to all of a sudden creating something out of your imagination. So you're using the life as a way to get better at imagining a better curve or a better solid or a better whatever. And so you're actually using the casts and the things that you're doing from life more as a way to just really hone your skill of being able to think about that thing.
Right.
And so that once you realize it's just about thinking about it, you realize you can invent that too. You know, you can do whatever you want. Is it a hard edge thing? It is a, you know, that kind of a thing.
Huh. That's interesting.
How long does it usually take for a student for that to click with the?
A year or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't like the idea itself is really simple, really straightforward. Like, I don't think I've ever had anybody that goes like, oh, I don't get it. Like, everybody seems to understand, but once you try to do it, it's a lot. It's really a steep learning curve where those first few are just brutal, you know, and then after people get the hang of it, it becomes easier and easier and easier again. But it usually takes them about a year or so, maybe a little more. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Nice. So how did that, were you done with the schooling stuff? Because I don't want to transition out of it if you had more questions about that.
No, it's just more like what you were saying before about like how you actually got involved with the guys from Massive Black. Just because that was like through concept.org, right? Is that how people first found out about you, or was it before that?
I mean, I honestly don't know all of the backstory to the whole way it went exactly, because it seems to be rather convoluted and involve chaotic things, right?
Okay.
But it was more like I knew a couple people from art school, and it just happened to coincide when I was finishing up with my study in New York, and you know, the paintings weren't selling particularly well at the moment, and I needed to get work to, you know, pay the rent essentially. And it just happened to coincide with a workshop that they were having in Austin.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it was just happened to be a coincidence. And I was talking to one of them, and they were like, well, why don't you come out and just check out what we're doing? And I never heard of it. I didn't know what it was, but I was, okay, well, sure, why not? You know, I'll go down there and see what you're doing. And that's when I got there and then met people and whatever. And then they were like, well, if you want to work, then you need a job. Like, we could use somebody. And I was like, I don't really know how to use I mean, I know how to use Photoshop, but like, I don't know how to, like, I'm like, my skills on it aren't up to speed. I don't really know. Like, they were like, well, you'll just figure it out then.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in retrospect, I still go like, what was I doing there? Like, I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I loved the people and everything, but.
So you actually did digital paintings while you were there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. I don't know if I've ever seen any of them, actually.
Yeah, there's a reason why.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I still use the I still use the technology, but all the stuff, but yeah, you know what I mean? I did it for a little while, and I was only in it for the money. You know what I mean? I was not in it for, dude, I got so
rich.
rich.
Studio space.
Yeah. In the studio space. The mansion on the hill. Yeah.
Was that really where it was out of? The school? Was it out of a mansion on a hill?
No, God, I wish. Great.
You never know in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's a weird place.
It is a weird place. No, honestly, it was more in it was in the Soma. It was over like on 8th and Folsom.
Oh yeah, I remember
actually,
that
and
spot
even
well.
when it turned into the safe house, it literally migrated to 7th and Folsom.
Right, yeah. I remember
So
that,
it literally existed on that block, which is why everybody who went there has learned, like, that's where you all learn what, when they come to study art, and then you learn what Folsom Street Fair is.
Bring your kids.
Oh my God. I remember the first time I was like, what is all that noise out there? And then you go outside. Oh my God.
Your drawing class.
What's happening?
With the drawing class outside.
But yeah, San Francisco is crazy on that level. Yeah,
for sure.
It's a weird place for sure.
Somehow it still hasn't lost that, which is kind of great.
Yeah.
So how did you transition out of kind of that, out of San Francisco and teaching in that, environment than where you are now?
Oh, well, that's not anything art related, really. I met a girl.
Aw.
You know,
Tales old
she was
time.
great. She lived in Los Angeles. You know,
Nice.
and you know, there's a moment when doing the long distance relationship just is no good.
I
You know,
understand that fully.
and then you got to make a decision of where to go. And at that time, it's one of those things where you start looking at like, well, San Francisco is getting like crazy expensive. And
Yeah.
even now, the people that I'm knowing now, like nobody is leaving the apartments they've had for like almost like 8 or 10 years or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they just all live in the same place, because if you move into another place, the rent just shoots up.
Just sublet it and make $1,000 a
Yeah,
month
right.
extra.
So I moved down to LA, and now we have a daughter who's 5 years
Oh,
old. So I
nice.
basically moved down there for like family life, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then while I was there, I just to kind of get my foot in the door of the community of LA, try to figure out who's down there doing art. I just started doing some teaching down there, and so that it's just sort of continued from there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Not the most exciting art story, but
Yeah.
I like my family. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I mean, your art speaks for itself. So,
Oh,
you know,
stop it.
You don't need to be.
Stop it, big bro.
You don't need to be the edgy artist with the shitty art. You just have the good art and the normal story.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about your art, and kind of. I've been in this mindset of narrative and storytelling, and trying to like break that down for myself in this long. I had this conversation with John Wentz recently where I was like, I feel like I'm in the beautiful mind, but I'm just dumb. I'm just like a dumb version of it. I'm like, everything's connected. And then,
You're like the newspaper clippings in the
Exactly.
string everywhere.
and they're like, Josh, that means nothing. But I feel like your work has that, that
It means nothing.
that like built it, like you have, at least it seems to be a narrative built into your work and what you're trying to kind of say.
Sure.
And I feel like there's a weird, sometimes of doing that for some reason with some artist.
That's an interesting thought. I don't know if I'm right, or I'm just going to sort of spitball it, right?
Yeah,
I don't
let's
really
do it.
know.
That's what we do here.
But I kind of get this feeling like there is, I don't want to call it a stigma, but sometimes when people go like, well, if you had this preconceived idea concocted that you constructed, I mean, that's just so pretentious,
Right.
and that somehow that can't be about who you really are, or something. You're not really speaking from the heart because it's this pretentious. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but I feel like sometimes it can be, and that in some ways, I think that we're kind of all in the shadow of romanticism, like with the
Right.
capital R, where the whole idea was that there was these ineffable truths of life that your rational mind couldn't grasp, and
Right.
you had to somehow intuit you had to be a vehicle and channel the universe, and its mysterious ways would manifest itself
Right.
in this amazing work of art that somehow had this deep meaning you couldn't quite pin down.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I feel like that's kind of how a lot of people come up with stuff, honestly. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't want to paint it as a bad thing, but I think a lot of people come at it from that angle where I'm just going to I'm going to just feel it. And
Right.
It's just going to come at, and I'm coming at it from a different angle. I'm going at it more at, and the thing that, you actually do want to sit around and think of stuff
Yeah.
and come up with an idea and bounce ideas around for a while, and then try to make an image that will embody that idea.
Right.
And in a weird way, it ties back into other things like concept work or illustration, whatever, where you're literally trying to think of like, how am I going to get an audience to maybe if they don't fully understand, they definitely think there's a point. Like they don't just go like, I don't know, they're kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they're like, maybe I don't know exactly what's going on, but like there's definitely a viewpoint going on.
Yeah.
Here. There's being communicated. And so I don't know why people hesitate with it, but I do get the sense that that there is a lot of that,
Yeah, for sure. I have this weird theory that it's based on it's like the equivalent to bad poetry or something. It's like it's like when you were young and an artist, you had like this bad version of art that like meant so much, and then so you have like this natural reaction to like get away from that as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So you're judging narrative work based on like a teenager's version of narrative work. It's like
you're writing poetry, but like, I hate you, mom and dad. You just don't understand.
Exactly.
And now you're like, wait, I can't be that literal.
Yeah. And now you talk to someone about poetry and they're like, oh, that shit's the worst. And it's like, because young teenagers.
I think that a lot of it does come down to that, because I think it's when you do have an idea, it can be pretentious, and it can be boring or stale or cliche or stupid. It can be all of those things. It really can be. Like, just because something has an idea to it doesn't mean it's a good idea or even said in an interesting way. Right. So like, that's the thing I think, is that it doesn't take anything away, because just because there's an idea, it doesn't mean like, oh, so you're good now.
Right. Exactly.
It could be crazy, but it works the other way too. Just because you found this ineffable thing, like, it doesn't mean it's going to translate very well, But so I just I guess at some point, I mean, it might be kind of cheesy to say, but it kind of coincides with like when my girlfriend was pregnant with our daughter, and I'm sitting there, and you're starting to think of like, oh my God, I'm going to be a father. I have to explain the world to people or to somebody. And like, I have to like how am I going to make sense of this to another human being in a way that could be useful? And you become very introspective at the moment. Do you guys have kids?
I don't know.
No? Okay, so you become like pretty introspective.
I try to explain the world to my dog, though.
How's that going?
Right over his head.
Right over his head?
Not cool. He's
I think he's picking up a thing or two.
He's like, so don't pee inside.
Yeah, exactly.
You're getting it.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say.
You're teaching your child. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, so I was thinking about, it made me like think about like, the whole art thing. And sometimes at some point you're like, wow, this whole art thing is pretty frivolous, and
true.
Or can be, right? Is a lot of times. And, and so I started thinking, I was like, well, my God, like, what am I doing? I'm just creating more mountains of crap that, contain this ineffable truth, right? That I can't tell anybody why. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't mean anything. Right. You're doing it for the money, which is a good reason to do things. But, at the end of it, the money gets spent, and then what is there?
Right.
So I was like, oh, well, if I'm really into this art thing, like I should be doing something with it. And it just got me thinking, like, why not like try to like, I've always been inspired by, history painting and like things like Caravaggio and you know what I mean, where you look at these amazing things from the past and like they're essentially narrative pictures. And I was like, well, when are you going to do something like that? You're not getting any younger.
Right.
And so it turned more into like, well, how do I do that? I'm, how do you tell that kind of story, or what kind of story to tell even, right?
Yeah.
Like it's even harder than just like, how do you tell the story? It's like, well, what kind of a story do you tell?
And a big one I've been trying to tackle is like, how do you tell a good story? Like, because you can tell a story, but you should try to make it good. And how do you even define good? It's like if you compare it to like a book or something, it's like,
sure,
it's like you can tell a story a ton of different ways, but like Steinbeck is Steinbeck. You know what I mean? It's like he has a way of painting a picture through words.
So I actually, in the middle of all that, just started reading a lot. Like I started reading a lot of stuff, and I stumbled across, a couple of things. I was reading about like the Renaissance mostly, right? Because a lot of this, obviously, a lot of that multi-figure stuff, you find like there's a lot of good examples from that, and from that era, and. So I started thinking about like the Renaissance. I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, what Kool-Aid are they drinking? Because like everybody's doing that. So what were their thoughts about this thing? And they had a whole concept back then that came from ancient Greece. But how Renaissance is all about like discovering ancient stuff and reinterpreting into like the moment of their times, a relevant thing in their time. and you found things like the Latin phrase is ut pictura poesis. It's like as is painting, so is poetry. And they were linking painting and poetry to go back to your bad teenage poetry thing, right? So they were linking the two, and part of the reason why they were linking the two is because both can have narrative aspects, right? And the other reason they are linking the two is because at that moment in time, painters were just craftsmen. Painters and sculptors were just they weren't thought of as intellectuals or anything like that. Whereas poets and musicians kind of were. They were on a more elevated status. And so they were literally trying to borrow that prestige from painting and using the ancient
from poetry.
Picture as is painting, so is poetry as a way to like bolster their clout, right?
Nice.
And so I was like, okay, well that's interesting. And there was all kinds of things that they wrote about what a picture should contain in order for it to be a successful kind of picture. And one of the things, like they would have it becomes silly at some point because it's just like a list of things that can have really bad results. It's like a recipe for disaster if you don't just follow it literally, but it's like, a picture should involve, it should be an imitation of life. It should imitate things in life or represent things in life, but it should also be an invention. It should somehow have something to do with your imagination, and it should also have expression. And what they meant by expression was that it should, I don't mean like I'm expressing my soul. I'm sure it meant that, but more like they wanted the figures and the people in the pictures, you should be able to tell like what they were thinking through their body language, through the expression of their gesture, right?
Right.
And then it should, and they're also like, but art should also not only be delightful, it should also be instructful. It should instruct people and be good for them. And then it should, whatever, decorum. There's all these lists of things that they had, and this got me thinking, and I just kept like following that trail, and it led me to a lot of these things because it pictorial poesis, and you find like Horace was a old poet who wrote about that kind of a thing, and then which led me eventually to Aristotle, who also wrote he has a small work called Poetics, which is literally written for like as a how to, like, hey poets, this is what you need to do in order to make like some good drama, right? And crazy, right? So it led me back to that, and I read that, and in that, when I read it, it just sort of like kind of blew me away in a weird way, because the examples were really simple on how to come up with something, and it can be cheesy and all of those things, but I found the information to be really useful. Like on the one, he was saying that the drama should be about human action, that it should be all about the human drama and human action, and that you should focus on action. And in fact, a plot was a development of action, right? And so I'm like, okay, you know what? So it's not just about like a person standing there doing nothing. It's like there needs to be some kind of action. They need to be doing something, and then furthermore, he was like, and that action needs to have a development of some kind. And he was talking about like, it works best if that action leads to like a moment of discovery where somebody passes from a state of ignorance to knowledge, or there's a reversal of fortune. Like, you thought it was going to go out great, but it turned out totally bad, or like rags to riches, or whatever, like that kind of a thing. And just like little simple plot devices, right? And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's the kind of key to focus in on when you're trying to come up with a narrative, is you're not looking to like just like describe something in a documentary way. You're trying to show how the scene has unfolded. So you need to pick a moment when it's sort of unfolding. You know what I mean? And in the middle of that kind of action. And anyway, I guess I feel like I'm kind of rambling. But
no, I'm loving this, first of all. I have one random thing, which is, because this is going back to my perfect mindness, which I just landed on this.
Like your dog.
Yeah. Which is, I've landed on this kind of very similar thing, but a bit off, is like, where I've landed on like 3 narratives that I thought were like the 3 things to kind of think about when trying to create a piece of work, which was just like an object in motion, 2 objects colliding, or an object not in motion, which is kind of the what you were saying, how it was like you can't have inaction, but I was thinking that like inaction is actually a very important story to tell. Like the ability to be stuck somewhere is not an action, but the lack of an action, but it can hold so much power in that, like, in that story.
I think that sometimes when I've talked to this with students before, and I've tried to describe this before, and a lot of times when we talk of action, people get hung up on the fact that means like, you got to show the guy swinging the sword and the blood from the head and like all like, but no, you're right. Somebody sitting there is an action. Reading a book is an action. I mean, what's not an action, right?
Yeah.
But
I agree.
but the what you're talking about is like being stuck there. It's like, but the crux of the matter is that you're sitting there, or you're in that position, and you could move. You can't go because there's force opposing you, or there's a confusion, like you just don't know, whatever the reason.
Or comfort.
There's a reason attached to it, right? It's not like you're not just stuck for no reason.
Right.
There's a reason why you're stuck.
Right.
And it's connecting the action with the motivation. Remember the expression? Correct. You have to be able to know why somebody is doing something. Right. It's that connection that makes the story unfold, which honestly is why people like Norman Rockwell are fucking brilliant, because you look at that, you don't need anybody to tell you what's happening. Like you can tell, like that's why it's so brilliant, because even when whatever they're doing, you know why.
Exactly.
And that's what makes it so compelling. Part of the reason is because us as people, we learn by mimicking things, right? And it's no coincidence that representational art is a form of mimicry in a way. Like you're mimicking the way something looks, right? With just dirt and oil and whatever. But
I use fancy pigments.
but whatever, right? So, but it's a mimic. You're mimicking it in some way, and escaped me. Spaced out. Whoa.
Too much bourbon.
So going back to like the story, you're just helping me a lot with my perfect mind brain, scatterbrain.
Oh, we were talking about why somebody would be stuck. There we go. So and the Rockwell things, the reason why they're so great is because there's the mimicry going on, and you actually understand what they're going on because it mimics things that you see, and in a weird way, you mimic those things in your own life. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're frustrated, you know what it's like to be frustrated, and then you see somebody else doing it, or even think about how you learned something as a kid, like, or if they see you do something and they just repeat it instantly. So like, I think as people, we're really connected to that kind of mimicry. In a way, it's how we learn, right? It's, you watch other people, you dress like other people, whatever, right? It's a big part of it. And, and that ties into
even emotion. I forget where it is, but there's somewhere where the emotions are reversed based on like facial expression. So like it's kind of like you could think of like a monkey. A smile is like offensive to them. Like they'll attack you.
Yeah, totally.
And there's countries kind of like that where like shock isn't shock to them. It's like an opposite It's like an opposite emotion in that.
Way they express it
in that culture, So if they see you do that, they don't understand what you're what you're expressing.
There are I mean, I'm not super knowledgeable about this, but I know that there are like a certain number, or a handful of emotions that the way they're expressed are common for all cultures.
Yeah, like laughter,
but
and things like that.
Things like that, like really simple ones, but they're common no matter where somebody comes from. But then other ones like you're describing are, they're definitely definite differences.
Right, and then you got to think that must be from like mimicking.
Like like in some culture, like if you like in our culture, we look at each other while we're talking.
Right.
Whereas in some cultures, maybe it's like you don't because it's considered aggressive or something like that. But,
right, there's status involved in it.
Yeah. Or you got taught to imagine them naked and you just perving out. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah. By the way, nice.
Right.
But so when you started going down this like storyline thing, because I've been kind of trying to tackle these ideas, and a big thing is finding tools to kind of tell the simplified story, right? So you find like a story you think is worth telling, and then you simplify, and then like things like, for instance, like Norman Rockwell, he has kind of like like the ability to like reminisce or something. Like it's built into his work. It's kind of like Americana, like dream world is built into his work, which is kind of.
I would say he is the definition of that thing. He defined like what that was. Right. Whatever it was before, after he came along, it was what he said it was.
Right. It's like
it was that big of a force.
It's like when you go to a restaurant and you're like, just like mom used to cook. It's like that's him.
Yeah.
He's just like mom used to cook.
He's just like mom used to cook. Yeah.
And that kind of like, I've been thinking more about these tools that you have to tell a story, especially visually through like painting or drawing or whatever. Is like, what tools do we as artists have to tell these stories? So like expression, as you were saying, is a big one. And then it's like, I've been trying to think of like, you know, like the ability to like a Norman Rockwell, like how do we define, I don't know, something that draws these emotions out of modern day, you know, like for instance, like Polaroid pictures, right? Like I've noticed a lot of people have been painting with like a lot of blown out images with a hard flash in the background. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I feel like they're utilizing like this idea of reminiscing about a time based on like Polaroid pictures.
Like a sense of nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nostalgia. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's a tool you can use to tell a story. Like every book, you know, like not every book, but a lot of writers have used nostalgia as a kind of tool to kind of add value to a story, you know. And I've been kind of trying to figure out all these like little like tools I could use to build a story worth its weight or whatever.
Sure. I guess the way I think of it is. As I guess I'm not trying to use something like that as a tool to build a story. I'm looking for like I want to first of all find a subject that I find interesting somehow, whatever that might be. And I keep like running lists of stuff, right? Like I like running lists of anything at all that interests me.
Right.
And I write down tidbits of something I hear, an image that catches my eye, like I mean whatever, right? And that's just like this running list of things. Like I give titles to things that aren't even in existence yet. Like I'm just trying to like start like get a conversation started in my head in a way. And but the thing that I've found that I really need to land on is like I want to find something where there's something in tension where it's sort of there are conflicting things happening at a moment. In other words, I don't want it, you know what I mean? Like I want there to be like opposing elements so that I can actually get, I think that's where the interest of the story comes from, is where those things collide. Like the opposite. So like if you're thinking of like, I don't know, whatever being, I don't know, I guess I can't think of an example off the top of my head,
but let me just, maybe I can help like explain my question better to around what you do, which is like, I feel like one of the tools you use in your work, maybe I'm dead wrong and I don't mean any offense by this, is like there's a bit of maybe comedic relief in your work, right?
Yeah, such an asshole.
And to me, I've been in this like, I love the, you know, when you have like a friend who's like a great storyteller, you know, and I've been really trying to pinpoint why they are great storytellers in general. And there's always a tension, right? There's always a bit of comedic relief. There's always a great ending to the story. There's like all these like built-in things that I found to be interesting and kind of trying to figure out how to convey that through a painting. Like, how do you have an ending to an image?
Yeah, that's my kind of my point though. You can't.
Well, you can't. I think you can.
Well, you could, but that makes it a little bit like ending on the resolution note is a little bit not so interesting. I think, well, maybe it could be. I mean, I don't want to speak in such strong terms.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be.
Yeah. That's my wonder is, can you make a good ending to a image? That's kind of the thing I've been like trying to figure out, is like, if you're trying to say something through one image, one way I think you can do it, which I'm not set in stone as far as like, this is the way to do it, is a title, right? Like you can see a title and everything all of a sudden focus
comes
is,
together,
and you go
somehow.
like, boom, I understand everything, and all of a sudden you have an ending to this thing you viewed for however long you viewed it.
Yeah.
And it can have an impact of a surprise ending or something like that.
Sure.
Of like,
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm hung up on the word ending.
Yeah.
I think that the I think the important thing is that somebody realizes that there is a point or a statement
Right.
being made, that it's not just an open-ended whatever.
Sure.
That there's a statement being made, and that sometimes a statement being made can be one where you haven't like solved all of the world's problems. You could literally say like, there are these issues and these issues play out, and you could show how these issues play out without having to like, fix the world's problems.
Right.
You could just like, I just think it's time to start a national conversation about this. It could be like that. You don't necessarily have to resolve it. You just need to bring the elements up together, and it does have to coalesce around something. And I guess it could be an ending. But I it's kind of silly. I'm thinking of this painting literally because the book is sitting right there, not because there's like the painting of like by David of the death of Socrates, which is in the Met, right? And it shows Socrates, and he's doing one of these finger pointing moves, and he's got like the cup of hemlock, and there's the people crying like that. And it's at a moment where what's going to happen, especially if you know the story. He's going to die and all of that, but they're not showing the moment that he's like dead or whatever, or the moment of him actually. They're showing like a moment right before where things are still in motion in a way, like the people crying, and he sent his wife away, and they're walking up the stairs, and you know what I mean, and he's trying to tell them, don't worry, like or the soul is immortal and whatever, right? So it's kind of what's going to happen, and there's resolution in that sense, but the moment is still full of life, you know what I mean? Or even like I'm thinking of that Norman Rockwell where the kid has run away, and he's at the diner counter, and the guy behind the diner, and the cop is there, and the cop is going to take the kid home, right? It's like that, but the moment that's shown is that moment of like, oh, so where are you going?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like so there's resolution implied.
Right.
It's like an implied resolution, or it's it's inferred, but it's not like depicted literally.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It leaves you, the viewer, a little bit of space.
Right.
To like complete. It's like you fill in the blank, and by filling in the blank, you weirdly feel like you're a part of that picture now. Like you and that picture are having a dialogue because it wasn't standing on a soapbox and preaching everything to you. It left enough space for you to like get what's going on, and you get to like go like, and this is what happens.
Right. And see, that's where I don't know, maybe the word ending is the wrong.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, I think I got hung up on the word.
But I think,
I don't mean to be nitpicky. I just,
Yeah, it is kind of like.
You guys are making me nervous. Good cop, bad cop thing.
Tell us the truth.
Yeah, we got your record here.
But it's that like leading. Yeah, it's kind of like you're leading them to a place. Like you've kind of built an image that has all the tools for you to get to the possible outcome, or the most I don't know what's the most probable outcome out of the thing, and you. Yeah, then the rest plays out in your head, or hopefully plays out in your head.
Yeah, or it gets you close enough to what the person's point was, where it was at least the gist of it got across. You know, like even if it wasn't perfectly said or whatever, at least the gist comes across.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what makes these things like really interesting, because that is the problem with sometimes when things are super, like when the narrative is
spoon fed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
it's a good way of saying it. Like it can feel like somebody's preaching to you, and nobody likes that. Like nobody. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody likes that.
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of political art, I feel like, falls under that kind of
it almost
umbrella.
makes it go into like political cartoons or
Right.
something,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
literally how they function,
Yeah.
you know? Which the crazy part is they're using all of these little elements we're talking about, but
Right.
but it's like so bam on top of
Yeah.
your head that,
Mhm.
you know, like there's no subtlety in it. You know?
No, or there's no letting the viewer get to the potential
Yeah.
ending.
Which is why people get upset and like, you know, shoot people at Charlie Hebdo and stuff like that because,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it happens.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna get
Happened.
canceled.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, that goes back to what I was saying earlier of like how to tell a good story. Like I think narrative, because it gets such a bad rap, is because of the spoon feeding and like the almost religious aspect
Yeah.
of it. Like the
I think that is why it gets a good bad rap, but I also think I also find that people are actually naturally very, very interested in it and
Mhm.
very compelled by it, and it's just the bad stuff, the schlock that gives it a bad rap. Because when you
Mhm.
see a good one,
Right.
everybody's like all in, you know.
Yeah.
It's like super amazing, but you can say the same thing about the bad teenage poetry. I'm expressing the
Sure.
ineffable,
Right.
like that gets really schlocky too. Where you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay, well, it's this girl wandering around in the,
yeah,
the fields. I don't know what's
Right.
going on. It must be deep.
yeah,
Like, I mean, that can be just as cheesy as somebody preaching at
Right.
you. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's kind of hard just to put it all in a box like that.
Yeah.
And,
I think one of the most important things though is kind of taking away the taboo-ness of it, because you can allow people to like grow those like storytelling skills without like if you cut them off at the knees, you know, if you're like, don't waste your time with that, that's like cheesy garbage stuff. Like you focus on like the, as you were saying, like the like you let your soul speak through the painting or
Yeah.
something and smash
I
against
actually
it.
think that's why it's a not a bad idea to focus on moments of transition. You know what I mean? Like these moments where, like, the say like the moment of transition where like the Norman Rockwell example, right? We already, he hasn't showed us the end, but it's the transition where we know the cop is going to take him back eventually, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
it's a moment of transition where like this is happening and you know the kid is still experiencing his freedom at the moment, but he's going to be brought back to safety where he really wants to be anyway, you know? And so it's Americana and warm and fuzzy, right?
Right.
And or it could be a moment of transition, like where, like I was saying, it's like a reversal of fortune or something, like in the death of Socrates one that I was just talking about. Like it's sad because he's going to die and they're all sad, but the message really is that he's saying that you should go on, you know, you should live on and like,
Right.
you know, blah blah blah. It's like you shouldn't be sad about this. This is a joyous, or maybe not joyous, but this is an event that is not a bad thing.
Right.
This is, you know, blah blah blah. And so it's like a moment where the message that you expect, you know, it's him saying like this is what an honorable person does, is you stand for the things that you believe in, and to die for those things is not a bad thing. You know,
Right.
it's actually
The
a
hero
good
story.
thing. What better way would you what?
The hero story.
The hero story. I thought you said something else. I saw that you said like a Euro something. I was like, what?
I'm just hungry. Euro? Should we go get Euro real quick?
But it's you know, that thing, like what else, like how else would you want to live your life? Like it would be worse to like realize that you had sacrificed everything you had turned your back on everything you believed in just so you could like watch, you know, another episode of fucking Baywatch or something. Like, you
Real
know,
Housewives.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right. Like that would be actually the more tragic story.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a kind of a reversal in the sense that, you know, it's sad, blah blah blah, but is it? No, that's the way you should want to go out, you know. So it's like, I think it's those moments of transition that wind up being the more interesting ones to focus on in terms of like how you could have a tool or a moment, like don't just go like, I want to make a picture about whatever. It's like you need to find a way that unfolds, and
Right.
like how like what's the turning point in there, or
Right.
what's the surprise in that, you know, and not like in some kind of like Shyamalan kind of way where like
No,
you know,
yeah.
it's not just to like shock the person just to
Right.
shock them. It's like no, it needs to tie into why you're saying the message, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I I agree with all of this.
Wow, I feel really pretentious.
Except for like what you were saying about the tragedy of the Real Housewives reminded me of when I was a kid. My brothers got in a fight because one wanted to watch Moesha and one wanted to watch Jerry Springer. And one of my brothers has a lazy eye from a black eye he got ever since that day.
Oh, it was brutal.
And I would find that story interesting. Like,
it's an interesting place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually what I do is I take things like that. Like I find something interesting
Right.
where I'm like, oh, that, and by interesting, I mean compelling to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't sit around and go like, what would somebody find interesting?
Right.
I actually, I do like, what do I find interesting? And then I write them down and do whatever, or draw little sketches of them or something, like terrible thumbnail sketches, and
Everyone got mad at your word using terrible.
why?
I'm sure terrible.
No, they are.
Everyone,
No, people think that they're not, but they really are. They legitimately are.
people hate when people say that they suck at. They're like, "Oh, that's horrible," and they're like,
No, but I'm being honest.
Yeah.
They're not good. But that's not the point. The point is they're not. They don't need to be good.
Right.
In terms of like pretty or something.
Mm-hmm.
But so I keep a running list of stuff, and what I do is I keep revisiting that stuff, and I keep going back. Sometimes for months. Sometimes. I mean, sometimes stuff forms rather quickly, but sometimes it's like I come back across something that I wrote down a year ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it starts to develop, and it's like that. It's like kind of that development where I start to realize the complexity of the problem, or that there's like multiple angles going on, and that's when it starts to actually turn into something. Because then I'm like, oh, now I can pit things against each other, and I'm still talking about the same thing, but I'm no longer talking about it in just such a monologue. It's like all of a sudden I've got like elements like that are reacting to one another, and that's when I realize I've got something.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've even got sketches that studies that for pictures that I've just learned to do this. I've got studies for pictures now where I thought it was. I'm like, oh no, I got it. This is a really good idea. I think it's gonna. I'm into this. You know. And I've even got it up to the stage where I've done drawings that were ready for transfer to the final support, and like, you know what I mean, like, and it's like ready to go, and actually stopped and went, I don't know, it's missing something.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, I've got drawings that are just sitting there where I look at them and I go like, no, it doesn't have that tension. It doesn't have that dialogue. Whatever it has, it's missing this it's missing this internal conflict, right? Like, and I can't seem to find it. And those just literally I've just learned to shelve them until I can figure out what it is about it that I haven't come to grips with yet. And
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I've just learned that that's just part of the process too. Like, sometimes you do think you're onto something, and you realize like halfway that you're just not. And it would be nice to have an art director that could help you out with that, or an editor that could help out. But like, you're doing it yourself, so
It's also like, if you think about, like, I've been thinking about this thing for a long time, which is when I listen to podcasts with comedians, they talk a lot about working out the joke, right?
Yeah.
Like, they have the initial idea, then they work it out. And artists, a lot of times we don't allow that. We paint something onto the next thing.
People that's exactly right. They want to do it. They want to go for the thing. They want to do the next thing.
Yeah.
They're just going to like crank this stuff out. Right. And there is virtue in that, in the sense of like knowing how to have a work ethic and like, learning, like, because you do learn from mileage, you know what I mean? So like, there is a lot to that, but like what you're talking about, like coming up with like a really good joke or whatever. No, it's like that working, because the joke has to do with like an idea and the way that idea comes across.
Yeah,
and
even
like,
tension, how to build that tension.
Exactly, how to get to that moment,
for the
right?
relief,
how to like bring it up so everybody's there with you, so that when you like let it go, it does what you want it to do. Like, and it's not obvious all the time. And that's actually, I'm going to steal that example from you. I really like that. It's a good example.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out, because a lot for me, working out my ideas I think are probably similar to you, where it's just a lot of drawing and figuring out and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I have these two narratives I've been doing for since I think I've been doing like art and like showing art, or like these two narratives of getting lost and finding home. Like those are like my two like narratives that and I feel like recently I've just kind of like like with focusing on how to write a good story, or I mean, kind of that mentality. I feel like I've somehow opened up this like new version of how to say that in a way that's just like, to me, I'm like, I've been doing it wrong this whole entire time. Like, like I haven't been doing it as good, I should say, maybe.
Sure.
As I.
my I mean, I don't know about the particular thing you're talking about, and I'm not gonna try to
say they're stupid. Did you just say they're stupid?
Fuck.
Did you just call me fat?
I did.
Some shit.
But I think a lot of people when they approach I'm thinking of experience with students, like trying to develop these ideas. A lot of times they just kind of come up with an idea and it's just like too one-dimensional,
right?
You know, and it's not that it's a bad idea. It's like they actually like even just you saying to me, you know, I coming home or being lost, right? Both of those like have like, it's like just even the phrase alone, it's like you could say it's generic, you could say it's cliche or whatever, but the fact of the matter is those are like real things that everybody feels, and they have immense potential, because like the emotional well that can pull on is really deep, right? But it's just but to like pass from your example to just to like other students, I find like that a lot of times they just go like they just go for the most direct way to explain the thing, without having really thought about like, well, what is it like to do that? Like, is it like, in what ways have I, like, I could say like I never really had ever intended to move to San Francisco. It had never been this goal of mine. And yet after when I lived here, it's like I really felt like I had come home. You know, so it's coming home is not always an expected thing. You might all of a sudden realize one day that you actually are there. You know, like, or whatever. I'm just saying, like,
and who are the people that build that?
And how it got built up, like the joke, like how did it get bounced back and forth and all of that. And and those are the kinds of things that they're not always obvious. You kind of mine them and dig for those kinds of things, and because otherwise it does come off as preachy and sort of pedantic and like propaganda, essentially. You know?
Is that 3 P's?
It was. Did I alliterate?
Nice. PPG.
What did I say? I forgot.
Pretentious, propaganda, and the one in the middle, pedantic, I think.
I did. Whoa. Oh. Right on.
What is that?
Whoa. You should be doing that more. Why have you been waiting for that?
Do you have a bomb drop?
What's that?
A bomb drop?
I do, actually.
Man, if I would have known that you had that.
I know.
I love it.
I know.
You should do more of that.
Oh, you just opened up a can.
I love it.
Pandora's box. It's not. It sounds like it's kind of low too. So.
Which, by the way, Pandora's box is a classic moment of discovery, in the sense that she's opened the box and gone from, she didn't know what was in the box, she wanted to know, and she's passed from a state of knowing, or curiosity. She's from a state of ignorance to a state of knowledge now. You know what I mean? Which is all of a sudden in her case, it's a bad thing, or a paradox, or whatever. Not a paradox, but like, you know, hope. It's a double-edged sword.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's why I watched that. What's that? A briefcase opening game? I never actually watched it. So
I don't
even know what you're talking about.
What is it called?
You like pick open and it's like $1 million. I don't know.
Yeah. Howie Mandel, something.
Sorry. I shouldn't have even tried the joke because I didn't even remember the. Wah, wah, wah.
So.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, I hear that one a lot. Jokes just don't.
Do you put those in after the fact? Like, are they?
No.
Oh, this is real time.
Oh man, I love this.
Sometimes it comes together like a beautiful painting. That's fucking awesome. I love hearing what you have to think about this, because it's one of those things where like I'm always in my brain of like I don't know how you work out ideas, but a lot of it's like self, communication.
Oh, almost entirely.
Yeah.
I actually don't show the stuff to somebody until it has some kind of substance already, like some kind of structure or some kind of like tangibleness to it. I find that like if I introduce something to somebody too early, it's like too many cooks in the kitchen, and inevitably somebody, like most people aren't very good at just going like hearing you out and like trying to hear what your problem. They kind of want to steer it in some direction, or they're trying to be a good friend and, oh, you got a problem, let me help you solve it.
Right,
and it's like sometimes you just need to hear yourself explain it to somebody. Actually, I use that as a test. I actually use that as a test for myself.
Yeah.
Like when I feel like I've got an idea that's pretty okay, I actually start talking about it to people just to see how they react.
Yeah.
Where I go like, so I got this idea. Here's the idea, and it's not so much to get their approval or their disapproval, which is what some people think it would be. It's more to hear myself have to explain it to somebody to make, because like if while I'm explaining it, I'm going, God, I feel so stupid right now. I'm like, I'm not committed to this idea. Like I feel like this is dumb, right?
I had a painting once where I was explaining to someone at the art show, and I said, "Speak their truth," and I was like, I hate myself. I don't even like this painting anymore.
Well, yeah, what that means is that's just not what it was about, and so I actually do that because I want to know if I feel stupid saying it, because I'm gonna have to say it.
That's a
you know what I mean? And if I feel stupid when it's just a project in like the preliminary phase, maybe I need to rethink it if I feel dumb already. You know what I mean?
That's
and it's like, because the ones that you're really into, if somebody's like, no, that's fucking stupid, and you're like, no, I know it might not be there yet, but I'm into this. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. You're like, I don't care what you think. Like I just got to figure this out, but like I'm gonna do it. Maybe not this version, but like somehow this has got, it's got to get out. Like it's gonna happen. Like those are, and so by bouncing it off somebody, even unwilling subjects, they don't even have to be willing. Like you can just like try to explain it, and you'll have a better sense of where you're at with that. I totally use people for that.
Yeah. I've been using Sergio a little bit.
I mean, literally, like we use the podcast for that sometimes.
Yeah. And I just showed you the painting I'm working on now. One of the interesting things I've been trying to do is kind of like show someone work and then look at where their eye travels to go like, to go like, okay, they're looking like, because I'm trying to lead them in certain directions. So if they're
that could mean either there's a problem or it's a good thing. It could be one of the. It could be both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because somebody could be like, what the fuck? That's totally fucked up right there. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I'm spitballing.
It's so hard to take that criticism in general. I'm always like, no, you don't see it. In my head, it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of why I don't show people something until like it's one thing to talk to somebody and like throw an idea out there and see what happens. It's another thing to like show them the actual designs. Right. Like that's the moment when like I like to just sit with that for myself for a while until I have like a few versions of it. You know what I mean?
That's a good move.
Yeah.
I still have trouble doing. Plus, my wife's an artist, and she comes in and points out all my flaws every day.
Yeah, I don't have that problem. I can see how that could be a blessing and a curse. Like, because sometimes sometimes you need you don't want to know the truth at the moment. You're like, I need a moment to sort of like gestate with this thing, and but then on the flip side, like when you do need a real critical opinion and there's nobody who can like articulate it, it's like, why am I even talking to you?
Exactly.
No, it doesn't look great. It's obvious. And they're like, what are you talking? I could never do that. Yeah, but you suck.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't say that, but you go, but
Yeah.
You're like, I could never do that. I know, but
Yeah,
like,
right.
And then they're like, what do you mean? And then
yeah, I mean, I can see that being both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Usually she points out the thing I like the most. She's like, that's wrong. And I'm like, get out of my studio. Get out of my Get out. You're not welcome here.
I'm calling the lawyer right now. Oh, wait. You are the lawyer.
That's right.
Oh, sorry. But wait, where's the...
Sergio?
There, thank you.
Oh, joke on a joke.
You just got critiqued by waiting to dry.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yep.
Man, I'm gonna give this like 5 stars on Yelp.
Yelp. Yeah. Remember to rate and review.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So, are you working on anything big right now? Like, are you working on? I mean, I don't know.
No, I just finished that one really big one.
Oh yeah, the painting's crazy.
Thanks.
Is this the boat one?
No, that's ancient news, man. Like,
But
no,
he's
the people in like the
yes.
supermarket.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, that one's crazy. Yeah.
So I've just finished that one, and I'm working on some more medium and smaller sized things, like a couple things, because I got a show coming up with Shawn Barber and Coro.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Ah, nice.
Yeah,
Where's that at?
Maxwell Alexander in Los
In LA.
Angeles on Saturday, June 13th.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're all invited. Like, come on out. Yeah, so I'm really excited about this show, actually, because those two guys are
Beast.
fucking phenomenal, man.
Yeah, that's
like,
a good show.
yeah, it's going to be awesome. So, but the gallery is of a certain size, and so you can't just like go, mural size paintings constantly. So I'm just trying to wrap up like a couple of like a medium size and a couple small pieces, and then after that I've got some more big ones I'm thinking about and in the works. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to figure out like I'm actually right now. I'm painting the ones for the show, but what's on the burner for the design is I'm actually trying to figure out this other, like the next one. Like, how do I get this thing to come together? So,
do your smaller pieces end up being as or have a narrative to them as much?
Jesus Christ, man! Like they haven't, but like they're starting to turn into that. You know, like the one I'm literally painting right now. I was like, oh, it can't be that bad. It's just like 18 by 18. It's not that big. Like, no problem, right? And I'm like, oh, Jesus, why did I put all this stuff in it? You know, and like, and I'm realizing all of a sudden, it is just as complicated as a large one because I made the narrative of it like fairly complicated,
right?
And so it doesn't matter if it's big or small. If it's a complicated little story, you've got a complicated little picture you got to deal with.
For sure.
And, it might not take forever, but it's like longer than just like, sitting down and, doing an alla prima portrait or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. God, I really want to go to that show now.
You gotta go.
Yeah,
you should go. You gotta go, man. It's gonna be great. I hope.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are gonna be there. So I mean, I think it'd be for me. Even just like I want people to see the work, but it's also gonna be cool just to see like a community of people all be there. Everybody can see each other. It'd be nice, man. Good show. It's gonna be a great show, actually.
That sounds awesome.
I'm really stoked on it.
Nice, and right in the summertime.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Go to the beach afterwards.
So are you in crazy paint mode right now, or
I am.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. I hate crazy paint mode. Yeah.
It's
literally like where you're like, the paint mode where you're like, you do something and it probably would be fine, but it's not up to your expectations. So you're freaking, oh my God, this is terrible. Fuck, I'm behind deadline now. Like that kind of a thing. Yeah, I'm in that mode where like, shit, I'm behind deadline mode. Yeah, for sure.
I wish you could put your brain. I don't know if you find this, but like something you nitpick while you're in it, and then like 2 years later, you're like, "What was wrong with that piece again?"
Oh,
exactly.
I'm way too self-conscious to ever talk to you about that. Yeah, that's a whole can of worms. Yeah, there's definitely those ones where like, well, here's what I've realized over the years is that there are the ones where I was self-conscious of them and I had every reason to be, and like even like later, many years later, you go like, yeah, that was a bad move, And then there are other ones that I've seen where I remember being really unhappy with it when I painted it or whatever. And then you see it years later and you're like, what's wrong? No, it's fine. Like, I mean? So it's like, all I've realized is that like when you're in that mode of crazy paint mode, you're just not a legitimate critic of what's going on, unfortunately, I mean, because, It's just how it is. You're just not a legitimate critic. And I've just learned that the best thing to do is like, I mean, beyond a technical critique, like where like, no, the rendering's not, I mean, whatever, right? The color could be better. I mean, there's like technical things that I think you can still be a legitimate critic of, but like, like whether the piece itself is successful or not, I find that usually most of us are not the best. We're not the best critics in the moment. You know what I mean? And that it's not until later when we've calmed down that we actually can be more objective. And so I've just learned literally to just turn that shit off and not like, just don't engage with it. Like I go home, like at the end of the day in the studio, I'm like, fuck, it sucked. Oh my God, it's so bad. This is going so horrible. I've just literally learned to like go home, have a few drinks and just stop. You know what I mean? Just stop. Like it's like the freak out isn't going to help. It doesn't do anything. And not only that, I know that sometimes I'm just being crazy,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is go home, do something to occupy your mind, get some good sleep, you know? And if you go back and I've even learned to, when you go back in the studio the next day, if it's still bad, you still don't freak out. Like you just go like, no, this is going to take some time. And like, cause then there's things like a month later, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. Like, you know, and it's like, if you could have moments recorded of you saying all those things, you'd realize like how chaotic you were about it, you know?
Right.
And I've just learned to go like, it's just, you know, you might feel shitty about it or whatever, but it's just not really up to you ultimately.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And the most you can do is try the best and you'll learn for it. But the learning from it is not going to be like this instant payoff. The learning from it is actually going to happen like a year or something later when you can actually reflect on it in a calm head where you're like, oh, I can see the benefits and I can see the flaws and blah, blah, blah. And you can actually really learn from it. That's my opinion at any rate. Like we're really bad at learning from something that happened yesterday.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is where the critical eye comes in, and
having somebody around that could help you out. Like, I mean, I don't have somebody at home that can. I'm fortunate that Microphone actually is really good at helping with ideas. Like if I bounce ideas off, she's really good at that. But like if I need like the technical critique or whatever, you know, I'm fortunate that I have enough friends that I can, you know, call up or have them come over or, you know, send picture to them. Hey man, like look at this real quick. Like, I mean, there's definitely like a lot. I do that when I need to for sure. Cause there are moments when you're going like, am I crazy or is this totally fucked? I need to know. And I need somebody I trust, somebody who's knowledgeable and who I trust that can actually, it's not just like, you know, they're not just like patting on your head going like, no, it's great. They can be like, you know, they can like look at you and go like, no, dude, you're being crazy. Just like work it out. It's going to be fine. Or they can go like, yeah, man, like stop right now. Like you got to fucking back up. You know,
sometimes your phone can actually be that, you know, like taking a picture.
Yeah, sure.
Like, oh, I see why it looks wrong now.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Right? Like a small little picture or whatever. Like, oh, I'm going to post this on Instagram. Whoa, no, I'm not.
I've done that many times. Yeah.
Or like the mirror trick, you know, like looking at your work in a mirror and you're like, oh, it's wonky when you look at it that way.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There's always like a weird way to kind of make your eyes see it through a different view.
Yeah.
It's a weird world we live in.
Necessary things. Necessary. Yeah, the artist life is particularly weird, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You said you became a teacher to get a studio space. I mean,
yeah, I was in it for the money,
like
the riches.
Like, that is right. That is such an artist problem solving.
I know. Well, that's literally what I did. I wish I could say that I had this like I'm such a humanitarian. I'm so altruistic. And, like, I wanted to, you know, I think by you know, the rising tide raises all ships. Like I mean, I wish I mean. I do have that component to me, but no, the initial beginning of it was like, I need a studio space.
Right.
That's what it came from. And, you know, but it has turned into more like I do stuff sometimes just because I want to contribute to the community or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like the initial thing was definitely like, I'm tired of painting in my living room. It was definitely the motivation for it.
I mean, that's super understandable. And I don't know, I actually enjoy the problem solving that I feel like most, I don't want to say most, but a lot of artists, they lack that ability to kind of see a business out to the problem. You know what I mean? Like how to solve the problem through a business mentality or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, not everybody gets into art because they want to do business, right?
Right.
So I mean, it makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There is like, if I think that I mean, honestly, I think that like the creative mind, like, is not incompatible with a business mind, right?
Right.
Like, I think business people are extremely creative, right? Like I mean, absolutely. Like, how do you market something? How do you get the more eyes? Like, how do you make this more appealing to somebody? Like, these are all like important things. And like, if you're an artist and you're supposed to be creative, like, why not apply that creativity you have to like other aspects of what you're trying to do?
Sure.
Like, there's no reason to pigeonhole yourself and go like, no, all I do is, this. I make, like, draw all day long or whatever. It's like, you got to try to find a way out of it if you're going to make headway.
And I mean, it's easy to blame others or something like that for you not having the ability, but at least if you allow yourself that mentality of like, maybe I can figure out how to get myself out of it, you might do it. And I mean, that's a better case scenario in my mind.
Even if you blame somebody and you were justified in blaming them, how is that going to solve your problem?
Right.
Like, you're still in the situation. Like, I mean, at that moment, it's just sour grapes.
Right.
Like, it doesn't. Yeah, you may be right. You may legitimately have a bit, like a valid bitch. But like, that's not going to solve the problem.
For sure.
You know what I mean? You've still, at the end of the day, after you've had your bitch session, you've still got the problem to deal with.
Right.
So, yeah.
And if what we do pretty much, I feel like as artists, is problem solve on a canvas.
That's all
it
is, man. That's
and it's like, if this is what you do, you should take that skill and see how else you can utilize it.
Yeah. I don't know who said it. I think Coro said it. I'm not sure. But he was like, basically painting is like, the whole idea of like being of making a painting is like to make a mistake and then fix it, and then make another mistake and fix that mistake.
So
and it's like, it's just like an endless series of fixing mistakes, And so like, that basically is what you're doing, is like, there's a problem and you have to like, figure out how to solve it.
Yeah.
Do we get the Milli Vanilli quote in there now?
Which one? I don't even know.
I'm not going to do it.
I don't even remember Milli Vanilli's hit song.
Oh wait, it's not Milli, it's Vanilla Ice. Sorry, I fucked up. It was, not only was it bad, now it's even really bad. It's like
he sings his songs, man.
Sorry, it's a fucking horrible reference. Should have made something more like, contemporary.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
Yeah, Jinx.
Yeah.
How does Jinx work in a podcast?
I don't know. Does somebody got to hit somebody?
Yeah.
You got nothing.
I love that. How can I get that on my phone so I can do that while somebody's talking to me?
Good idea.
Yeah,
I'll tell you the app name later.
Awesome.
Should we get into questions?
Yeah, we have rapid fire questions.
Oh, shit.
Sergio's got a button. He'll explain it to a button.
Yeah.
It's time for Sergio's Question Corner.
There it is.
So, yeah, I'm guessing you didn't prompt him at all.
No, sorry. I'm horrible at this.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing, actually.
It's just a bunch of like quick fire.
I get it. I get it.
So, yeah, I think it's 4 different, some harder than others, but yeah, we always start with the hardest one.
In the butt. No.
Who is?
Sorry. So the first question to throw at you are, who are your top 5 living artists?
I should have probably prompted you on that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Living, right? Living. Okay. I'll go for Vince Desiderio.
Good one.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think Nicola Verlato is doing some fucking killer stuff.
Not familiar with that one.
Great guy. Oh, man. Like, awesome. Nicola Verlato. Look him up. He's doing some great stuff. Scott Hess. Scott Hess, I think, is also doing some amazing things. God, there's a lot, right? So that's 3. I get 2 more. Shit. Antonio Lopez, just because that dude.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, right. Israel Hirschberg. I really like that guy's stuff too. And
Was he an influence on you, Israel Hirschberg?
early on?
Okay.
Yeah. Like I
I
know
can
that
kinda
I
see
know
that.
what I'm doing doesn't look anything like that, and people probably would never even find any. Early on, like definitely, I think Israel Hirschberg does amazing stuff. Yeah. And I guess Adam Miller, I think, is doing some pretty cool stuff. I could name others too, like Neo Rausch, like I mean, whatever. Like,
Oh, really? Huh.
yeah, like
Interesting.
all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? Like I think Lola Gill is doing some amazing surreal stuff. Anyway, I could, whatever. Okay,
For sure.
I tried. That's more than 5. That's like off the top
You
of my
answered
head.
that easier than anyone else.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah. You
I
passed
wi-
with
I-
flying colors. on that one.
I wish. I mean, honestly, if I had to really narrow it all down, and I'd have to really think about it. But that's just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That's probably better that way.
Yeah. That's why you don't
It's more
prep
honest.
people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
The prep people, they get all like, I gotta, and they give us one person. They're like, I can only think of one.
Then next is Josh's favorite question. Is there an artist you hate?
They don't have to be alive, by the way. So, and it could be now.
Yes, but I don't know if I want to.
Perfect. Yes.
Yes, there are artists
That's
I
even
hate.
better.
Yes.
Leave it open.
Do I want to call it out in public? Yeah, I'm not so sure right now.
That's how you tell a story. You leave it open for
That is how you leave it
interpretation.
open, right? Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'd really like to do is actually, publicly call somebody out, but really it'd be like WWF, where we're like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, and like the beef is just really to generate more interest in the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Tupac and Biggie.
Exactly, Tupac and Biggie. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
move. It didn't end well for them, but
Well, that's
their
true.
legacy lives on.
Well,
forever.
yeah,
So as long as you're okay with being dead, you
yeah,
could live on forever.
it's
Right.
true.
Um,
Or you could be Macho Man and
yeah, agreed. I'll be Andre.
Yeah.
there you go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, what would you do with David Cho money?
How much money does David Cho have?
Like 300 million or something like
I
that.
think so. Yeah, 200 mil or something like
Somewhere
that.
in the forever money range. Where you-
Forever.
Yeah.
What
Basically,
would I
if
do with forever money?
Yeah. Like artistically, if there's anything.
Oh man, do I get to think like that? Do I get to think like that big?
Yeah.
That's cool. I think that like living wise, I'm pretty happy, and I would keep like no, I mean I would upgrade to like my second mansion, but
Yeah.
I mean beyond like the
That
material.
sweet teaching money.
Yeah, right. That sweet teaching money that
Yeah.
rolls in every month. Beyond that, I think that my living that way would be the same. I like my family, blah blah blah. That would all
Right.
be great. But if I go like, oh man, if I had that kind of money, what could I do artistically? I think I would go all in Rubens style and like get like a workshop full of people, highly crafted people, and start like figuring out like how we together as a group of people could somehow make like insane like productions of like pump these insane pictures out.
Right.
And,
Oh
like,
yeah.
but like super
I like that.
since it doesn't matter whether they sell or not, like
Right.
like fucking do crazy ass shit like that and like employ people that are super good and like spread that wealth, but like focus it into like somehow. No, really, I'd alleviate world poverty and make sure
Yeah,
nobody was hungry. Like
But
I would
after that.
Yeah, no, I would do something important. Not. Yeah. Sorry.
That's pretty similar to what I would do with it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch Netflix.
Right.
Yeah.
Buy Netflix so I could watch whatever. No, sorry.
All right. Last thing we do is got a list of 10 artists, and you just give your
Whoa, you guys are
opinion on
fucking
it.
brutal. Do I get like the or like
I mean, I
cheer?
could, yeah.
Like,
Caesar,
do I get
like-
do I get like the
Murder.
exactly.
Et
Yeah.
tu, Brute?
We're gonna find that artist you hate. We're just gonna keep going. Do we say 10?
Yeah. Exactly.
We just keep going until it
Well, this
lands.
is brutal because I'm gonna have to live with this, right?
No, all these people are dead. I think. Right?
Okay.
Most of them, yeah.
Okay.
Who's
It's like
alive?
one.
Oh, like Banksy or something.
Yeah. So first one is Van Gogh.
It's good. All right. I like Van Gogh.
Perfect.
I don't hate Van Gogh.
Yeah. I mean, these aren't like things where like you have to say like them or hate them, but it's a fun
more like
way
first
to.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Your
Well,
first and
my first impression about Van Gogh is I really like the linear aspect of the picture. And I think in terms of a viewpoint, he's got like a real personal, interesting viewpoint. Like, you know,
For sure.
they're not always like. There's something about that like cake icing thing that I don't really care about so much. But like, you know, like whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
What is that?
That's not right, not wrong. So lasers, why not?
Okay. I thought it was shots fired, but like a space
I have
time.
shots fired, but yeah. Next one is Dali.
Oh, love Dali.
Oh, interesting.
Love Dali. Yeah, absolutely love Dali. Even though he was a money-grubbing bastard and totally unscrupulous, you know, but like anybody who can like drive around in a car full of cauliflower, that's pretty cool. Like, no, I like a lot of people, my early intro into art comes by way of surrealism.
Right, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so Dali, you know, he's in the head shops and like, you know, Dali's fucking rules. Like, so Dali and Magritte, love those guys. Love
Interesting.
them. Love them.
That's awesome.
So that's
Okay.
next one is Picasso.
So you're doing a first reaction to his reaction. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, pretty much. We're changing it up a bit. Why not?
Yeah, Picasso's a tough one. He did so many things.
True.
You know, like he did so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it I think is really cool and some of it I could fucking care less.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if push comes to shove, I would say I like Picasso.
We are pushing and shoving you. So.
Okay, so I guess I like it. I'm just not super thrilled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. Doesn't make it top 5 alive.
No, I'm not even gonna. Like, you know.
Right, yeah. Next one, Monet. That's a
Can't
boo.
stand that shit. Is that like some grandma calendar? What is he like? The Thomas Kincaid, like the French Thomas Kincaid?
Oh,
Before,
shit.
Shots fired! I love it. There's something weird about the art world where everything is so not negative. You know what I mean? Everyone's always like it's good. I don't like it, but it's good. And
Yeah,
you're like,
well, you know, but I guess it depends on what it is. Like the Picasso one, honestly, it's like it would depend on which one you showed me,
Right.
Because it's just so versatile, right?
Yeah.
But Monet, I can tell you who's worse than Monet.
Who's that?
Fucking Renoir. Dude.
oh,
there's-
shit.
Renoir is like the.
Do you know
worst
about the
shit.
Instagram
who do I?
account dedicated to how much Renoir sucks?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
Nice.
I do. I can't stand it. I
Nice.
really can't stand it. Yeah.
That's who I was expecting you to say too when you said that.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Renoir's horrible. Huh?
Yeah.
The audience agrees. Frida Kahlo.
Oh, I like Frida. You know, unibrows are hot.
They're really in right now.
They're super in. Like, you know, it's part of the whole like no shaving thing.
Yeah.
Just like your opinion, man.
Nice. No, I think Frida Kahlo. I mean, you know, whatever. I could nitpick it, but like,
Sure.
no, I like it. Like I said, like it goes back to the surrealism thing. I could just I could lump it in with the same way that I like Dali or something. It's like I
Right.
just
Yeah.
I like it.
Mm.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's got that Mexican thing. I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that whole thing.
Spicy.
Yeah, I like that.
It's like a Latin soap opera. It'll keep you entertained, but there's no subtlety to that.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
That's a good way to put it.
that's true.
Not offensive on that. Next one, Georgia O'Keeffe.
Really? Vagina flowers?
I love it.
Georgia O'Keeffe?
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa. Gonna get in trouble now.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
You should have heard Nate Van Dyke.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine.
You're safe.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, Nate's awesome.
He's the best. We've had him on 3 times.
Yeah, I bet.
So, the audience made it past him. You're safe.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know. I have to confess that, like, when you sent me the message, I hadn't heard of the podcast.
Oh, no problem.
I had to go and let's do it. And I asked some people, and they were like, I had asked students one night during a figure drawing session, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I totally listened to that." And
No, really?
Yeah. So no, I was like, and that's actually when they were like, "No, I listened to that." That's what made me go like, "Oh, okay, I'll actually check this guy," because I didn't know, I didn't know,
No worries.
So because I obviously known who you are, Sergio, for a long time, but like the message came from you, Josh. So I was like, I don't know who this guy is. Like,
fucking lawyer trying to get money out of me.
Yeah, it's called Joshua, and it's like Joshua the lawyer. I'm like, what is this?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I get that a lot, actually.
It's funny.
Maybe I should just change it to not the lawyer.
Not the
Joshua,
lawyer.
The
The podcaster.
next name, Mark Rothko.
Oh, fuck. Really? Oh, definite, man. I mean, I guess if you like rectangles, if you find something spiritual about rectangles, fucking fuzzy rectangles. Isn't that like a drink, a fuzzy rectangle?
Right, yeah.
Like chicks are drinking that at, like,
Exactly.
Daytona Beach on spring break. No, man. You know what? It's fucking weird you even ask that, because I was like looking. I was I tell art stories while I'm teaching, and I was talking about Caravaggio and Bernini, who are much more interesting than Rothko, and their lives are crazy, but they wanted me to tell more stories, and I was like, I ran out of art stories, and I was like, oh shit, I need to look some up, because I got to refresh my brain on some interesting ones. Okay. And I came across Mark Rothko, where I was like, this is not what I'm looking for, but I came across this weird thing where there's some conspiracy theory where people are out to assassinate Mark Rothko.
What? Really?
Dude, I don't know. I just looked at this morning. I have not got to the bottom of this yet. I have no idea, but you know what? He fucking should have been assassinated.
No, you should think that he wasn't, because then he'd be Tupac and Biggie right now.
Right, yeah, with that thing in Houston, that little temple in Houston.
They got a temple for Rothko?
Dude, do you not know this?
I don't know.
This is a thing.
No, I don't know it. Listen.
There's a Mark Rothko fucking thing in Houston,
Another
Texas.
waiting to dry exclusive.
Yeah.
Is there like a religion?
I guess if you're into church, it's cool.
Do they wear rectangles on their chains?
Yeah, exactly.
Holy shit, I've never heard of this.
I don't know, man.
That's crazy.
Maybe it's like a weird, it's like furry rectangle, so it's like a weird furry thing. But they're
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Huh?
That's how the origin of furry started. It was the Rothko. We're breaking.
Yeah.
We're adding to the Wikipedia.
Rainbow unicorn
Yeah,
spooge and fuzzy rectangles. Dude, it's magic.
Yeah.
It's spiritual. Yeah, I don't like it.
I like it.
I got that from it.
I like your response.
Oh, okay.
We did not need your question at all for this. Yeah.
I know. I like how it was like, what artist do you hate? And you're like, I can't say. And then we're like, hey, we're doing this. We're like, I hate him. Next. Like, okay.
Okay, well, that leads up to the next one, Jackson Pollock.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now we're just tossing you softball.
Yeah, come on. Jack the Dripper?
Jack the Dripper.
Yeah, dude, Jack the Dripper. Oh, wait, okay, whatever. There was a slogan that said "Real art matters," right?
Okay.
And I was
Sergio's
so
waiting at a button.
one of those dumb things where yeah, it's gonna be a button for sure. And I actually went over there and did the whole
Which one?
the graffiti assist where I wrote versus matter, and I changed it to splatters, and then wrote Jackson Pollock as a quote underneath it. Yeah, it's totally dumb, I know, but
I like
whatever.
it. That's the one you hit. I thought you were getting for sure the Jackson Pollock button.
Oh, shit.
Wait, there's a Jackson Pollock button?
Oh, we talk a lot of shit about Jackson Pollock
Yeah.
on this podcast.
So can I ask why? Like, I mean, just
I just hate his work, and I hate the
Jackson
reason
Pollock?
why.
More like Jackson Pollock's Zing.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how some people are so into it, and they will. Who's like, what about Cy Twombly?
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know.
There's something like
it's like I understand that it's really, really hard to like try to make something that has like no design whatsoever to it, like that it's so all over that it's a lack of that. Like I don't think that it would be easy to do. For me, it's just more of like, I don't understand why I even like, I don't understand why I need that. The universe is already crazy and chaotic and perplexing enough. I don't see why I need another thing to perplex me in that way. Like,
and I feel like
it's on that level. It's not that I don't like get it. Like, I had to go to grad school. It's all that. All of you guys, like everybody who goes through, you all learn about this stuff in art history.
I didn't learn shit.
Well,
I'm self-taught.
Okay. Well, good for you. That's good. But it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, it's not that I don't get what they tell me the point is. It's just that I don't fucking care. It's literally more that. Like, I'm like, dude.
Yeah,
that shit. Right. Like, I don't want to fucking listen to that.
It goes back to like, I think we said something. I said it's better to be like a good artist with a boring story than that like edgy artist with like with shit art. And I feel like a lot of art has become that because it goes back to like the storytelling thing where it's like, because you suck at telling a story, now the value in your work becomes how cool am I? Like what am I? Like I'm the story. It's like this boring like.
Yeah, but
how is that the art?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean,
now the Dos Equis guys should make the best art because he's the most interesting.
He is the most interesting. Well, I mean, how I see it is like that. Maybe maybe he does have a point, and maybe it floats somebody's boat. Like, I'm not out to dismiss it. Like literally, like, and like maybe like I don't want to like dismiss the legitimacy of it, right? I'm not interested in that. My point is just literally like, it doesn't interest me.
Right.
Like I'm not
100%.
interested in that. I could even, if I talk about like music, and if somebody were to mention like, well, what about like John Cage's 4 minutes and 44 seconds of silence? I'd be like, well, I'd rather listen to something than nothing, and they're like, yeah, but the something is all of the sounds within the silence. I'm like, no, I really would rather listen to, like, I would rather somebody try. It's just one of those things.
For sure.
Like the legitimacy of it, like, okay, like maybe it has its place in the canon of art history or whatever. Like maybe it has its point. I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying I don't care.
Right.
Like I'm not into it. Like I don't care.
I agree. Yeah. And I think one of the big things though is like that weird pressure you have to like have
to say that you like it.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, no, shit sucks, they're like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't get it.
No, I mean, well, it still happens. Like, it still happens. Like people like still react that way.
Sure.
I just don't care.
Or like we've talked about it before, but it's like he was the first, and you're like, okay. I mean, I get there's a value in that, but that doesn't mean that I have to care.
No, it doesn't mean, and not only even it can work the opposite way. Like, what if it was the most amazingly well rendered, painted, whatever?
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to care just because it.
Right.
I mean, it works the other way too. It's like
100%.
Yeah. I mean, that's not what. When you're asking like, do you like how does it affect you? It's like maybe it doesn't. Like, maybe you're just like, I don't fucking care about that. Like, like I don't like golf.
Yeah.
Exactly. Talk about golf all you want and how amazing it is, and I just don't like golf.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I will, but right now I think.
But right now, I mean, do they got lots of drinks while we're golfing? Like maybe.
And do I like golf or drinking?
Yeah, exactly. Has golf become my new excuse for drinking?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Podcasting is mine.
Right.
There you go.
Cheers. Yeah. Next name is Banksy.
Who? Is it even a one person?
Banksy? No, Banksy. Zing!
I've never even heard that.
Oh, really? Oh, it's kind of new.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Who is Banksy? I don't even know. Is it Banksy a collective of people? Whatever.
I heard he's Jeffrey Epstein. That's what I heard.
Yeah, right? It's okay, but overrated.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay but overrated.
I feel like that goes for like almost every artist on that list.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pretty
That
much.
isn't good. It's like, yeah, it's okay.
I like it more than Monet.
Fair enough.
Yeah, cheers. Your feelings on Monet makes me so happy. I mean,
Dude.
I don't feel like that much.
He's the original grandma painter, like the OG grandma painter. I'm sorry, dude. Like
You're
look at
spot
that
on.
shit.
I've never heard him
Like
explain-
Thomas Kincaid was like, if I took a little bit of like a lot of Monet and like threw in a little house.
Right.
You know what's funny is
Right.
like when we do this, right? Like I wasn't a big fan of free to color, right?
Okay.
But the more we do it, the more I gain like appreciation for her work. Everyone that loves her explains it in such a way that I'm like, that's a good point. And you're the first person who's done that for Monet in the opposite way. I'm like, damn, you're not wrong about that.
I get why people like Monet. Here's the thing: it's like just like I'm like I get Jackson Pollock. I don't like it.
Sure.
I get Monet,
Right,
and
yeah.
I just don't like it,
Yeah.
right? And it's like I get that like the color and like the all. I mean, you know, like painting the same subject under different lighting conditions and like, you know, this response to nature and all of that. Like I think those are all valid things, you know what I mean? And I think they're worthy of pursuing. And and when people look to Monet for inspiration for things like that, I totally get that, right? Like I even know that I had a conversation with Coro one time, and unless I'm misremembering this, like he was like, "Oh no, Monet, I can see like blah blah blah. It's a good thing. It's like I could get like how you can use this." So it's not like I haven't heard like how somebody would be looking at this in a positive light.
Right, yeah.
I just can't get over the grandma factor.
Yeah, sure.
Like I just can't do it, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
And
some people like country, some people don't.
I fucking love country.
Yeah, see, and I'm not a big fan.
Dude,
But-
William Allen Coe.
I mean, actually,
I fucked it
I'm
up.
slowly like
David Allen
enjoying some country in a weird way, but
You should try David Allen Coe.
very, very minimal. It's
David
like,
David Allen Coe.
It's like that mix between.
It's the most racist shit I've ever heard.
sounds like right up my alley. I only like racist music.
Dude, racist country music is the best country music. Johnny Rebel.
Soundbite.
Racism, man. I love to racism, bro.
Some Johnny Rebel. Oh.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's so horrible.
Yeah.
It's so
It's the
horrible.
worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like that. It's like there's like people hate rap, people like rap, people hate techno,
Yeah.
people. It's like it's all a taste thing in certain, you know. art
Yeah,
forms.
and I mean, you know, but it's a weird thing, like, cause like I think that we can take the technical considerations too far, right?
Sure.
Like, for instance, like you might not like Frida Kahlo because you're like technically it's not this stellar thing that you might want to be looking at, right? Like it's not like technically insane like a Gérôme painting or you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't have that quality to it, right? So what people are responding to is not that. They're not responding to the technical aspect
Right.
of it, right? So on just to push that even farther, like I almost think that there are things definitely in my life that like I know that I like them,
Right.
not because they're technically good,
Right.
or whatever.
Like a corn dog.
Yeah, you're like, no, I don't care. It's like, dude, I
That shit is delicious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I was thinking of something a little different. Like if you think of those African fetish sculptures where they like nail. It's not like these things are technically brilliant, but you know what?
Right.
They're fucking cool.
Right. Yeah.
Like and somehow the idea or the point of it just overrides, or just your connection. your personal connection
Right.
to the thing overrides that technical consideration, right?
Right.
And so it's possible to be reacting to things like that. And I actually think it's a mistake for artists, especially representational artists, where technique consumes most of our, like it consumes a hell of a lot of time. Right?
Sure.
That I think that it is a valid critique to be like, you know, sometimes you got to keep that in check and like
Yeah,
think about like what is it that you're actually responding to. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
The only reason I don't like Frida is because I don't like. It's the same reason I don't like Latin soap operas. You know,
because they're like so
they're so intense. I'm
so
like,
racist.
she's just so like, you know, like her level of emotion is like 20, and I'm like, that's just too much for me. Like, I just need to bring it down to like like a 6. Yeah.
Okay, I mean I think that's like a fair enough critique, you know. But
it's not necessarily. It's not even really technical reasons. It's it's that. It's like it's just too.
It's too
intense.
much. It's too much.
Yeah.
Whereas something like Magritte in terms of surrealism, like the one thing that's so amazing about Magritte as a surrealist is that like the understatedness of it is actually makes it even weirder.
Right.
You know?
Right,
You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of surrealists around these days, you know what I mean? Pop surrealists and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff is just like over the top. And I actually think that one of the things that makes one of the things why I like say like Lola Gill's work is because the surrealness of it is a bit understated. It's not like I'm gonna be super weird or whatever. It's like it makes it feel legitimate to me because like I don't know. So there is something about that kind of like understated quality with accompanying the weirdness of what surrealism is. That
I think your work kind of would, I don't know if you would say fit in that same category.
I don't think of myself as a surrealist, but other people have put some, I would say like some images maybe, but like.
But it feels a bit like a fantasy, but not. Do you know what I mean? There's like a bit of it that's like, it's almost like, if you ever watch like Stranger Than Fiction or something like that, where there's like, it's a reality, it's a story told in reality with like a pinch of like, that seems like it couldn't really happen in real life. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
Or a slight exaggeration. I know there's no like.
It is an exaggeration.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That bit of exaggeration is like the subtlety of it. You're not like putting unicorns or something. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but or you can't.
Right.
But you know what I mean? It's like,
oh, kill me. Stop me. Next time
only
you
paint unicorns. Only paint unicorns. And that was the answer to In the Butt.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm not gonna say that.
Making a rude gesture right now for our listeners.
Awesome. Is that it?
Was that one? Oh wait, did we do Bob Ross? I forget if we did.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, that's the last name, Bob Ross.
Bob Ross?
Yeah.
How can you hate? Man.
He's almost universally loved on the podcast.
Yeah, well, because how can you hate that? I mean, you know, and even his teacher, you know, William Alexander, the old German guy. I mean, the whole lineage.
Oh right,
like,
yeah.
The whole lineage. Like, how can you hate that? You know? I mean, no, I mean, no, but. Yes, I would hang up an original Bob Ross in my house, for sure. But like, I mean, are you like sitting there studying that to like improve your land? No, not exactly. But so like, yeah, I like. Actually, it goes back to what I said. It's like it's the personal attachment that's overriding the other concerns, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
You know, which all I can say is that like that matters. You know, I think it's a mistake when people don't think about that. It actually matters. You know, it does matter. You know? And I like Bob Ross, so yay, Bob Ross.
He's also like a celebrity, you know, like
he's
a TV personality and
yeah.
But yeah, and wait, you said he's dead?
Yeah, the world will miss him.
Bob?
Really. Yeah, Bob.
Oh shit, I gotta make a phone call. Awesome. Well,
bonus question: being a dad,
you ever been hit in the head with a shitty pamper?
With a shitty what?
Pamper.
Oh, a shitty pamper. Oh.
No, I have been peed on though.
Okay.
Well, I feel like pee is easy. I can't handle poop.
Yeah,
in general.
but being peed on it like when you're out in public though kind of sucks. You know,
depends on the person. Folsom Street Fair.
I don't know. Yeah, because R. Kelly could have been totally into that thing. You never know, right?
Yeah. It's a thing.
It is a thing, apparently. You know.
Awesome. Well, this has been the podcast.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, me too. That was really fun. If people want to find you, it's just Carl_Dobsky. Is that what it is on Instagram?
Carl_Dobsky on Instagram, or my website, which I have not ever finished or ever really updated. You know, CarlDobsky dot whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Com or org or gov.
Something like that. Whatever. I'm around. You know, and I hope to have the website up and fixed before the show, so people can
Oh,
actually
yeah.
see
sure.
all that kind of thing. But yeah, like Carl_Dobsky on Instagram, or if you want to look me up on any social platform, it's just my name, and I'm probably the only one, so I'm easy to find.
Because you Highlandered the rest of them.
I fucking totally did.
yeah. Awesome.
So that Maxwell Alexander show is in June, you said?
June 13th.
June
June
13th.
13th. Saturday, June 13th. Maxwell Alexander, myself, Shawn Barber, and Coro Kaufman.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
a great lineup. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, man.
All right, guys. Thanks
It's
for
been
having me.
waiting to dry. If you're still listening, fuck off. Awesome.